Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. As always, please be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. You can leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, family, or neighbors to come on over and have a listen. That support is huge. Today, we are joined by Brantley. Now, his career began in 2010 when he moved to Nashville to chase a career in country music. Now, in 2017, he released his major label debut single, Speakers, Bleachers and Preachers. That's when things really started to pick up. In 2018, he opened for Kenny Chesney on his stadium tour. And then at the beginning of 2020, he opened for Brantley Gilbert before the world shut down. Now, during that time, between 2017 and 2020, Brandon found that he was beginning to lose himself within the music. Because of the busyness of the career, he was going on autopilot all of a sudden. So in 2020, he really took a step back to focus on himself and the type of music that he wanted to create, that he moved to Nashville to create. That led to 2 new singles earlier this year in Back Home and Broke, and it is going to lead to more new music in 2022. So please enjoy our conversation with Brantley. I saw a post on your social media this weekend. You were outside with the kiddos, having some fun outside. And I wanted to ask you about the connection with that to your childhood. Is that similar to what your childhood was like? A lot of time outside, a lot of time in the outdoors?
It was, Brandon. I lived in a subdivision, though. I lived in at the end of a cove, and we had, a little bit of a backyard with some woods, and I was always outside. And my grandfather had a pretty big farm, and it was in West Tennessee. It was 100 acres, but to me it was like Yellowstone. You know what I mean? So I rode 4-wheelers and just did all the stuff, fishing in his pond, and always wanted to raise my kids in the country. And that's ultimately why Nicole and I, we moved out here about 2 years ago, and we've loved it. So try to incorporate what I love the most and let these kiddos get outside and get some energy out every now and then, so to calm down.
And your son is 3, I believe, and your daughter's 1. And so what have you been instilling in them as far as music goes? Have you begun that process within them yet? Or are you sort of waiting to let them discover it?
Well, we have a little room with a kind of a little platform, and we just call it the stage room. And they've seen me on stage doing shows, and so my little boy will like to emulate. He's got a little guitar, and he slaps it around and sings. He sings. I've got a song called "Still Rock and Roll," and for whatever reason, he's obsessed with that one. So that's his go-to when he puts on the show. But yeah, I think they're going to be pretty musical, but I won't push it on them.
And so those stage performances at home that he's doing at 3, were you that kid as well when you were that age?
For sure. I was Elvis Presley all the way. So that I would dress up and pretend to be Elvis, and make a guitar out of a shoebox. And it's so ironic. My dad is a Southern Baptist preacher. He told me when I was little, he's like, Dolly Parton gets up and she writes 1 song a day. He's like, if you just have 1 song that takes off, that could be your career, writing a song a day. And it's so weird because I didn't think I was going to make, a life in music, because I was just all about playing basketball and, just being a normal teenager growing up and stuff. And then when I got in college, I took a guitar class, and it just kind of got the bug, and kind of never looked back. So, it is weird that, like 30 years later, what he told me and my sister was, kind of came true.
And I wanted to ask you about your grandma, because I saw that in 2015, you played the Strawberry Festival in Humboldt, Tennessee. That's, I believe, about 30 minutes away from your hometown. And you mentioned that your grandma used to take you to that festival every year when you were growing up. And so I wanted to ask you about her and what influence she had on your musical dreams back then.
Yeah, Brandon, that's so you were digging deep to find that, but that was an annual thing every May. She took all the grandkids to the Strawberry Festival, but she didn't have really much to do with music. She just spoiled us rotten is all she did, and she gave everything she had. She worked at J.C. Penney's all year round, and she would just save up just about us Christmas presents every year. She would spend all of her money on my 7 grandkids. So, she just gave and gave, and she was a good one. But she wasn't very musical at all. That's my dad's mom, and my dad is not musical at all. So it just kind of really came out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like growing up, you mentioned sports. You were a sports kid. And so where did the music come in? Is that something you discovered on your own, sort of away from your family?
My mom had real good taste in music. Like, early 90s, there's so much great country that was coming out, class of 89. So guys like Alan Jackson and Vince Gill and Garth Brooks obviously was a huge thing. But when I got to high school, Kenny Chesney had, I think, When the Sun Goes Down album came out about the time I was a senior. And I just, man, every line on that whole album, I felt like he was, talking about me and my buddies. And so, my buddies always liked music. We always jammed out or whatever, but the lyrics always meant so much to me. I was so intrigued with how people, contextualize their life experiences. And so as soon as I learned a few chords, I started just writing songs. So it was 110%. But when I pivoted, I didn't touch the basketball for like 6 years. I was moving to Nashville and trying to live the dream.
And growing up, I saw you posted a photo that you found on your parents' fridge from when you were growing up. And I think it was in church, and there was a guy sitting there with a guitar, and you mentioned in the post that it was Johnny Cash. And I was wondering if that actually was him.
It was. I lived in Gallatin, Tennessee until I was 8, which is about 30 miles north of Nashville, until I was 8 years old. And Johnny Cash had a house in Hendersonville on the lake, Old Hickory Lake, which is there. And him and June Carter would come to church. And my dad actually preached a few sermons with them on the front row. And, that's just kind of magical. He would come to visit kids and do that kind of stuff. So we just thought he was an old man at the time, and now it's just like, holy crap, how many people got that opportunity,
That's awesome. And you talked about picking up the guitar, learning those first few chords, and then writing. I wanted to ask you about Charlie Baker, who I believe was your first guitar teacher. And I wanted to learn a bit about him and what influence he had and what he meant on the beginning of your journey, and if you would be on this journey if it wasn't for him.
No, I certainly wouldn't, Brandon, because he encouraged me every week. I would, be able to play a little more stuff. And he was the one, he told me I need to either get in a musical play or go to an open mic writer's night at a bar. And so I obviously chose the latter. That was a lot more fun. So once I played my first open mic, I was hooked. And, he encouraged me to move to Nashville. He said, you got to go up there and give it a shot. He was up there in the 70s, and he actually played rhythm guitar for Carl Perkins. He was on the road with Carl Perkins, who wrote Blue Suede Shoes and, was good buddies with Elvis and Johnny. But right. He just really encouraged me to go on and get out there, So I definitely wouldn't have done it without, his encouragement, because I was like, wow, this guy's been there and done that, and he's telling me that he thinks I'm good enough to move to Nashville. So certainly gave me the spark to go.
And did he help you record your first song? Was it Tell Me She's Ugly? Is that the first song that you recorded?
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up, but yes, it was. And it was for a radio contest. And the winner of the contest got to open for our local heroes, Jonathan Singleton in the Grove and Ash Bowers. Both of them at the time were on big labels. And Ash was out with Luke Bryan, and Jonathan was out with Eric Church. And so, like, you get to open for those guys, I really wanted to win. And so we went in there the night before the contest was due and cut Tell Me She's Ugly. And it was out of tune and out of time. But they actually played that on the radio. And at the end of the year, Rocky 104 in my hometown of Jackson, Tennessee, they always do the top 5 most played songs that they played all year. And it was number 4 that year. Like,
really?
They played. Yes, it was. I was like, "Are y'all playing a joke on me?" But it was. It certainly helped my live shows, because obviously people heard on the radio, and then they were able to come to a bar and see it live. As bad as it was, it actually helped me out a lot.
That's great. And so in 2010, I believe it was that you made the move to Nashville. When you did that, were you focused on a career in country music? Like, this is what I'm doing, this is it?
For sure. Yeah, that's all I wanted. I was, yeah, a lot of guys move to town and they're afraid to say they want to be an artist. They want to be a songwriter, and then they really want to be an artist, but they don't ever say it. They just say I'm a songwriter. But I came up there and I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to get a record deal because I love playing live with a band, and I wanted to get out on the road as much as we could, and I wanted to be like Kenny Chesney. You know what I mean? So for sure, that's why I moved up there, and I was pretty focused.
And you were playing a lot of colleges and universities those first couple of years that you were there. And as a young kid who's just getting into country music, like, was that sort of a dream to be just touring around to these colleges and basically partying every night?
Yeah, it was a big party for sure. I had an old motorhome, and there would be 8 of us in it, and we pulled our own trailer with all the production and all the lights, and most of which I bought off Craigslist, by the way. And this motorhome took us all over the country, and we went from frat house to sorority house to college club, and that thing ran on Fireball and Red Bull. It was a trip.
And was it a unique balance as a younger person of living that dream of touring around and playing shows and, partying every night, like we say, but also keeping that focus of, I don't just want to be stuck in this my whole career. I have to keep working to get out of this at some point.
Exactly. You're dead on, because we were playing probably 70% covers at the time, 30% originals. I had a little album out that was doing really good regionally, so it gave people enough draw to come see us. And but doing 4-hour sets, we were playing a lot of covers. So you're exactly right. I knew on the weekends we would do that, but on Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday, I was in Nashville writing. And that's some advice I got from Ash Bowers, who he really was a mentor to me when I first moved to town. I think he produces Jimmy Allen now and Matt Stell, so he's got a lot going. But he was a real mentor for me and opened some doors. But he kind of, I might have went too much the party cover band way, which was, totally wouldn't be the right way I wanted. So he was like, the real work is done in the writer room. So it was good advice.
And as far as that writing goes, when you arrived in Nashville, did you feel like a songwriter? Had you been writing for a couple of years up to that, to a point where you felt comfortable writing in Nashville? Or did that take a couple of years to get comfortable with?
I kind of jumped right in, to be honest. I think I'd written like 5 or 6 songs. That's all. When I moved to Nashville, and it's ironic. My dad gave me just a notepad, and when I moved. I was fortunate because my sister taught kindergarten in Murfreesboro, which is about 20 miles south of Nashville. So I moved to Murfreesboro, and I would just commute every day to Nashville. But the first song I wrote on the first day, I woke up and I was like, well, I guess this feels like a job. And I wrote a song called Georgia that ultimately got me my first publishing deal. So it was crazy how that first song, that first day, ended up 3 years later, getting me a publishing deal, so I could, actually make money doing music other than show money. So I don't know. I kind of just jumped in it, to be honest, and for better or worse.
And as far as the music goes, in September of 2013, I believe it was, you had a post on social media where you had printed some copies of an EP. Where were you at that point as far as being an artist and starting that career?
That was, I got signed to Warner Chappell as a writer artist. And my point person there, Alicia Pruitt, was the one who believed in me and signed me. I don't know. It was a real turning point in 2013. That was just kind of after a few months of writing, she was like, we need to, you're touring, but you need some fresh music. So she helped me record that and package that. And it was just something we were pretty much slinging at frat shows, and giving away basically. So just wanted to have something to hand to people. So I forget how many songs was on it, but just something that people could put in their truck and live with.
Right. And around that 2013 mark as well is when you started to write and play with Jameson Rogers and Hunter Phelps. And those are two guys who you're still friends with to this day. So what have those two relationships meant for your career in just having that support of other artists?
It's crazy that I met Jameson the first day I moved to Nashville at the Bluebird.
Oh, really?
And we become best buddies, roommates. And then Hunter moved to town, I think 2 or 3 years later. And we just became like a little writing group, and we called ourselves the Mood Makers. And so people know us as the Mood Makers. And we got to play down at 30A Songwriter Festival, and that was cool for all three of us. But, we wrote every Monday for years and years, and, we lived together and hung out together. And, it's funny. When I went on the road to do radio tour back in 2017, I feel like those guys, they were still writing. And I feel like obviously they're on fire now. I feel like they wrote some of their best stuff, while I was probably out touring. It would probably paid off for them to be in Nashville writing some stuff, because obviously they're hot. But I've been doing some shows with Jameson, and it's always fun to write, just because, 6 months can go by, but we can get in the room and, it's just real easy.
And in 2017, Speakers, Bleachers, and Preachers. Now that song, I want to sort of follow the journey of that song, because you wrote it with Luke Laird and you guys didn't finish it. It sat for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And then Shane McNally came in and helped you finish it. So talk about that sequence of events and how that song felt as you were writing it.
We were writing for something, for potentially a first single, because the label put a lot of importance on like introduction, like who you are, which, to be honest, I think can be a little overrated sometimes, just because a good song always wins. But Speakers, Bleachers, and Preachers was pretty much a literal summation of where I came from, what I was all about, free throws and the Lord and chasing girls, and that was, and guitars, so we just quite literally put that in a song. And it's funny, the second verse has Kenny Chesney in it, and Luke was like, I don't know, that just seems too close, let's put Tom Petty or something in it. And Shane was like, no, that's what he did, that's what he did when he was 18. So it's funny, kind of fought for that, and maybe it helped me get on a tour with him the next year, I don't know. But anyway, that song was just, it one that felt good, and it just kind of worked.
And you produced the song with Paul DiGiovanni. Now, what did he bring to it? Because did Luke and Shane produce it first, and then
right,
you went with Paul to produce it again, and it kind of came out a little more on with the rock edge to it the second time? Paul
brought a lot of unique sounds to that track, I feel like, and he's just a amazing guy to work with. And, we did live tracking with the band when I cut it with Luke and Shane, and when I cut it with Paul, we programmed a lot in at his house, and then we went into the studio. So it was kind of reverse, if you will, and I like that process a little bit better at the time.
And so, do you ever think if you hadn't sort of reproduced it?
Yes, I do. I do wonder if what would have happened, because I go back and listen to it now, and it's easy to be overcritical of your mixes when you get them back, and then you let it sit for 6 months, and then you listen to it, and like, well, that wasn't that bad, that sounds pretty good actually. So yeah, sometimes I wonder, but you make mistakes, you make decisions, and sometimes mistakes, but I don't think that was a mistake. I thought that was the right call. And it was the difference in the label being excited and not being excited. So that's all I needed to know.
And with that point in your career, obviously you had recorded music before that. You had released music, you had an EP that you sort of soft released. So at that point, when you're releasing Speakers, Bleachers, and Preachers, what did that feel like for you in that moment of your career?
It felt good. It was, I had a lot of songs dammed up, but I was so ready to release them to the world, So when that moment came, it was kind of just like, finally, because we were touring hard without music available, so that, I didn't, obviously that didn't work very good. I was ready to put music out. So that kind of kicked things in high gear, and radio tour was really wild and really, really pretty strenuous for a couple of years. But, the song did okay. It was my introduction. It didn't do what we wanted to do on terrestrial radio, but it did pretty good on the highway, and it did good, and it went gold in Canada. So
Yep.
I was pleased with that. So, it was a good starting point.
And the next year in 2018, you hit the road with Kenny Chesney. Now, when you're playing a tour like that, you're playing stadiums, you're sort of living the dream. But when a tour like that is over, what is that feeling like? Is there like almost a low that comes with that?
Nobody's ever asked me that. That's a really great question, because there absolutely was. I would equate it to being with your friends at the beach all week, and then them all leaving and you're still there and it's raining. I don't know. That's kind of how it felt at the end of that tour. We went right back on the road, though. It was so busy doing radio tour. It was back to playing small rooms, radio stations, guitar pools in a parking lot, casinos, you name it, we did it. So for sure it was taking, felt like taking a big step back, but I always knew what an opportunity that that tour was. So I knew it was going to come to an end, and I really felt like I rang out as much as I could from it. So no regrets.
And so in 2020, you toured with Brantley, Gilbert, and you released some new music. And so going into the shutdown, how important were those moments in just showing you were going in the right direction? Even though everything was shutting down, there was positivity going into that.
Yeah. It shut down the tour. It shut down my third single, For My Money, which kind of pulled it when, COVID hit. We were halfway through the Brantley Gilbert tour, and it was a bummer. I don't think I realized at the time how much it probably hurt me. Like it hurt a lot of people's careers, but it's so hard to build momentum in this business that you definitely don't want to lose it. But obviously, who could forecast a worldwide pandemic? Things are out of your control. I've tried to learn to let them go.
And talk about during 2020 and early 2021 and sort of the reset that you had mentally and going into the new music that you have now, and just the new feeling that you have for your music that maybe you lost in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think I lost it just because I wasn't writing and wasn't creating. And every day I either want to make something with my hands or write a song or record a song. I feel like, but when I was constantly crisscrossing the country playing the same songs, I did get a little fried, and I did let the tour life kind of get to me, and wasn't eating right, wasn't sleeping right, I was drinking way too much. And when I came home, I had to reset because I was foggy. I'll just be honest, I was. And so in a lot of ways, COVID hit at a really great time for me mentally, because my wife and I were building this house, and we had just moved from the city out to the country, and we had a little baby and one on the way, so it was pretty chaotic as it was. But I needed that break. So I trust God and what His plan is for my life. I really do. Even though I got off there for a little while, COVID has kind of recentered me spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, and I think it's been a positive thing for me. Career is I try to compartmentalize. Career probably definitely hurt my momentum, but what can you do except for get up and create music and just keep on making music and playing? And luckily we're starting to get back out on the road, like I said, with Jameson, and we've been playing some shows in the Midwest, Nebraska, Iowa area, and it feels so good just to get out in front of people again. So hopefully we're done with all that. So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And the first two singles that you've released in 2021 are back home and broke. Now, how much excitement do you have behind these singles for pushing you forward into what you obviously hope is sort of the next stage of your career?
Yeah, we released those in hopes to kind of build up some buzz for February or March. We're going to be releasing a new single, and so we wanted to have like a 9-month, 6-month plan, and so releasing those were kind of just signals of what's to come, basically. And I cut a new album during COVID with I mentioned Jonathan Singleton earlier. I cut an album with him, and he's the producer on it. And he opened for me when we played a show in my hometown. We had kind of a homecoming show, and it was awesome. Amphitheater, it was packed. And he heard me play, and he hadn't heard me play in a long time. And he was like, "Man, your sound on the radio and then what your band does are two different things." And, he helped me kind of bridge that gap. So, it's been a creative process, but, what else can you do?
And so the first two singles are more up tempo than maybe your last few releases in 2020. And so the new music that's to come on an album, does it have that same vibe to it throughout the album?
Yeah, it's funny having these kids, and like I feel like I'm living in the good old days right now, whereas my default as a songwriter has always been nostalgia. And so I feel like creatively, just where I am personally, it has kind of shifted into more of a more of a lighthearted kind of guy, and it showed me what I want to play live. I want to sing about happy things every night. I want to record songs that I look forward to playing every night. And not that I don't for the other ones. I do. I'm proud of my work. But there's definitely more of a jovial, kind of a lighthearted spirit that's a little more down home that I think is definitely more of who I really am.
And is there a song on there that your wife joined you for?
There is a song called "You Don't Want Me Loving You." It's a song I wrote one night at my kitchen table, and it basically is just I guess the thematically is pretty similar to "Hard to Love" by Lee Brice, but it's a total different song than that. But it just kind of just speaks of her, what she puts up with, from me, and still holds on and loves me. And she's a great singer. So it's kind of a Jackson Browne feeling rock and roll song. Piano and guitar. It's more Seeger-esque than anything I've put out before. And so it was cool to have her sing the high harmony. Kind of made it feel like that era for sure.
And as far as a songwriter, I know that you've had some cuts. Actually, Manny Blue, a Canadian artist, he recently cut one of your songs. And so as a songwriter right now in your career, is that still part of it?
For sure. I mean, I had this conversation with my publisher the other day, like, "Hey, I know we're going to be releasing music in 22, but I really would love to get on the Morgan Wallen album." You know what I mean? So I'm definitely the ones I'm not cutting. I for sure love to write with people. And like Manny Blue, I've never met Manny, but my buddy Aaron Estice, I guess, produced that, who I wrote that song with, and I didn't even know it came out. And I saw the music video, and I was like, "Holy crap! They did that right." That music video is like a mini movie, and so it made me a fan of him for sure.
And what is that like when you have a song that you wrote and you obviously have a vision in your head of what you think it sounds like, but when you see what an artist does with it and the spin they put on it and the emotion they put behind it, what is that like for you in those two areas?
He did pretty dead on what I would have done if I would have cut it. I mean, the music video, that's what I would have tried to pull off. I don't know if I would have been able to. So that's where I got a lot of love for him and his vision. But the most getting the cut, really the only word to describe it is just gratifying. It just is kind of like, oh, I'm glad somebody, can put this out in the world and somebody gets it. And, you write so many, it's really gratifying to get, somebody that digs your stuff enough to put it out there on their record. So definitely thankful for that. And I'm definitely still, pitching other songs to other artists for sure.
And as far as being thankful goes, as we get back into more normalcy within music, obviously for an artist like yourself, you sort of have to hit it pretty hard to get back into the groove and get your music out there. But is that a balance of not sort of losing yourself again within that music and the touring and, actually having some mindfulness within it as you get back into the busyness of it?
For sure. Yeah. It's something to watch out for. I mean, old habits are hard to break. And, but when I've surrounded myself with some really great people that Lord knows where I would be without them, I think that's key with that. But I'm definitely hitting this whole career thing from a different angle moving forward. We're about to have some more fun, and we're probably going to have a lot more up tempo songs, and there's going to be a flood of music from every artist, and I'm sure you can feel it coming, and we're no different in that. So we're going to hit the ground running as hard as we can.
Thank you so much once again for listening, and thank you to Brandon for stopping by and sharing his story. Be sure to check out his new singles, Back Home and Broke, wherever you stream your music. Please also be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. Leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors to come on over and have a listen. That support is huge. Thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.